And welcome everyone to the US Web Design System monthly call for September of 2023, where we've celebrated Labor Day, shown here with the USWDS logo in red, white, and blue. And if you squint, perhaps you can see the form of Rosie the Riveter with her bicep, blue shirt, and red bandana. And Saturday is the fall solstice, with the USWDS logo showing the seasons change from green to gold and from brown to red. Slide 2. My name is Dan Williams, he, him, and I'm the USWDS product lead. And here on screen is my avatar: dark hair, blue sweater, collared shirt. Today, my physical self is wearing a blue button down and bright blue socks. Unfortunately, while we are recording this call, we currently aren't always able to share the video publicly. That said, we are making progress on being able to share videos, and we're building the capacity to slowly release more and more of these monthly calls publicly. So stay tuned for more updates. When we do post videos publicly, they'll be available via the Digitalgov event page. We'll be posting links and references into the chat as we go along, and I encourage you to ask questions in the chat at any time. If any member of our team can answer your questions in the chat, we'll do so. Otherwise, there'll be some time for questions and answers at the end of the hour. Also, be sure to introduce yourself in the chat as well. It's nice to know who's here, and it's good to have you here today. For those who find the chat distracting, you're welcome to close or hide the chat window during the main presentation. You can reopen it later during the Q&A session at the end of this call. So, thanks. And with that, let's get started. So, slide 3, what's our agenda for today? First, we've got a nice new site launch close to home. And then we'll talk about what's in our next release, USWDS 3.6.1. And finally, we'll continue our discussion from last month, stepping back from our near-term roadmap to the USWDS mission, vision, and Polestar, strategic tools that drive our product development. And then we'll end it with some Q&A. Slide 4. So let's get into it with site launches. Slide 5. So today we've got a new redesign launch from 18F built on USWDS 3. 18F is, like us, a part of GSA's Technology Transformation Services. 18F helps other government agencies build, buy, and share technology products. Their redesigned website homepage features a crisp, simple layout, focused on the words, 18F knows how to work within government because we're already here, alongside a schematic illustration of connected government products. Slide 6. Great work. Congratulations to that team. And be sure to let our team know when a new site launches, either with an email or a note on the USWDS public Slack channel. So let's get into it with USWDS 3.6.1, a small but mighty point release with a number of useful fixes. Slide 8. Here are some of the key improvements coming in USWDS 3.6.1. So first, stacked responsive table reads properly in Safari. We fixed a bug that prevented the stacked responsive table from announcing properly in the Safari browser. We also are making tile borders less distracting. We fixed a regression that unintentionally darkened the borders of radio tiles and checkbox tiles. Wrapping breadcrumbs now wrap more as expected. We updated breadcrumb wrapping to allow not only wrapping between elements, but wrapping within very long breadcrumb elements in the wrapped variant. We're improving the display of tooltip. We fixed an issue with the tooltip that could cause it to flicker when it needs to be repositioned. And we improved the image display and some image display in the open Gov banner. We improved the alignment of one of the images in the Gov banner. Finally, we fixed a rare mobile menu bug in Safari, where for a small range of viewport widths, just at or below the desktop breakpoint, the mobile menu wasn't opening properly. Slide 9. And that is USWDS 3.6.1. We're wrapping this release up now, and we'll get it out next week. Slide 10. So now I'd like to talk about the USWDS mission, vision, and poll star. Looking forward to 2023, this year, and beyond. We'll talk a bit more about what these individual terms mean in a bit, but together they're a statement of guiding values, a strategic tool that helps us make valuable decisions. It's been almost 4 years since we developed our existing mission and vision, and as we plan for the future, in our existing roadmap and beyond, it's time to reevaluate and see whether our mission is still driving us forward in ways that help us deliver on the value teams expect from us. Slide 11. I'll be talking about these ideas today alongside Ann Petersen, the USWDS Experience Design Lead. Ann, can you introduce yourself for folks?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Ann. My pronouns are they, them. I'm the US Web Design System's newest full-time federal employee, our Experience Design Lead, as Dan mentioned. In the interest of inclusion and accessibility, I'm a white person with short brown hair and small brown glasses. I'm aiming for a fairly androgynous look, if that helps. Again, very glad to be part of the team.
Thanks, Ann. They'll be joining me a little later, but first I'd like to set the stage and talk about where we are today and where we've been. Slide 12. If you attended last month's call, I'd like to assure you that while we talked about some of our history in the context of our roadmap planning, I'm not simply going to cover the same ground we covered last week, but those who've been following along with the design system over time will likely recognize a few of the sites along the way. So USWDS as a public product turns 8 next week. My son just turned 7, and I know that at least in human terms, we aren't toddlers anymore. We have some opinions for sure and are able to articulate them with increased clarity, but we're also very much the same as we've always been. Slide 13. So let's look back to September 28th, 2015. A world away, but also not so long ago. Slide 14. On that date, September 28th, 2015, we had our first public Hello World, introducing ourselves for the first time with a blog post on the 18F blog, which we're linking in the chat. USWDS 0.8 followed on October 13th, 2015. This blog post is still live on the newly redesigned 18F site. And you see that link in the chat there. On screen, we see a screenshot from the date of the original post, which reads, "Introducing the US Web Design Standards," with an old iteration of the Gov banner up there at the top, and the old 18F logo with its sky blue logo with its color hex code of 1188FF. Slide 15. The post calls out a question that's still relevant today. Is it possible to create a shared set of tools to provide consistent, beautiful, and easy to use government websites? It might seem disappointing that this question is still relevant today, but I'm not sure that I see it that way. Here in 2023, we see an ongoing commitment to the challenge this blog post articulates. It's noteworthy that USWDS still exists 8 years later, and that there's an engaged human-centered design practice all across government that has only grown in its influence and output. Digital experience is a part of the law now. Customer experience and a culture of design work that lowers the barriers to entry for government services is an executive priority. We are shaping the future of government digital services every day with this work. And I'm humbled that this community, doing the work day in and day out, are engaged with what we do, pushing us forward, testing us and inspiring us with the work you do, and adding to a common body of knowledge that subsequent teams can build from. Is it possible? We asked on day 1. So yes, the work is slow, but the tortoise progresses. Slide 16. Our first design principles stated on day one still influence how we work. You'll probably recognize every item here as essentially common knowledge at this point, and I'll read directly from the post. Make the best thing the easiest thing. We believe that making tools that align with the values and needs of digital workers in the federal government will drive adoption. Be accessible out of the box. We created tools that seamlessly meet the standards of 508 accessibility from colors to code. Design for flexibility. We aim to give the American people a sense of familiarity when using government services, while allowing agencies to customize these tools to fit their unique needs. And reuse, reuse, reuse. We reviewed, tested, evaluated, and repurposed existing patterns, code, and designs from dozens of government and private sector style guides to make use of tried and true best practices. So we didn't have an explicit mission or vision in those days, but you can see these principles in our current design principles and our product values. Slide 17. In January 2018, we retired the name Design Standards to call ourselves what we actually are as a product, a design system, not requirements established by consensus and approved by a recognized body as a NIST standard, but a collection of principles, guidance, and code that helps disparate teams align on common goals and design from common tools. Slide 18. 12 months later, in December 2018, came the 21st Century Integrated Digital Experience Act on December 20th, 2 days before a month-long government shutdown, calling out the requirement for a consistent appearance for websites and digital services. Slide 19, and a year after that came the publication of the website standards that explicitly tie USWDS to the requirements in 21st Century IDEA. Slide 20. At this point, we, then a two-person team maintaining the design system, decided we needed a mission and a vision. But why? Well, our mission and vision was meant to give us stability through all this change, to keep us focused on what was really important and on what we knew was important to the teams that use or might use the design system. Slide 22. So in 2020, we developed the mission and the vision that you can see on the USWDS website today. Our mission: USWDS is a design system for the federal government. We make it easier to build accessible, mobile-friendly government websites. To my eyes, this is a humble and practical mission statement that grows directly from the day one design principles. It was, in fact, important for us to reiterate that we are a design system in our mission statement, and to use that space to reiterate key values also called out in the law: accessibility and mobile friendliness. Slide 23. Our 2020 vision was really important to us. We envision empowered agency digital teams who share solutions and use effective human-centered design practices. Process was the key here. This vision is all about the teams we support and is meant to echo the USWDS design principles. The foundation of what we build comes from starting with real user needs, earning trust, embracing accessibility, promoting continuity, and listening. And of all the progress we've seen in the last 4 years, that progress in the service of this vision has been the most heartening. I already mentioned it above, but if this is the foundation of what we want to accomplish, that foundation is strong and getting stronger. Slide 24. And here we are in 2023 with a design system that makes it easier to build accessible, mobile-friendly government websites, and a community of agency digital teams who share solutions and use effective human-centered design practices. Is it as easy as it could be to build websites? No. Are we all as empowered and effective as we could be? No. There's still plenty of opportunity to grow within this mission and vision. But increasingly, we've noticed more and more value, more and more of what teams need and expect from us that doesn't feel like it's expressed in this mission and vision. So we needed to really be real and ask ourselves, slide 25, is this still the whole story? Slide 26, do our mission and vision still express our values and value? Do the mission and vision still help guide our decisions? Do the mission and vision still inspire? Slide 29. I think the honest answer is yes and no. We've talked to a lot of teams in the last few months, and we've done a lot of planning for what we want to accomplish in the near term. And there are a couple of themes to what we've heard that fall somewhat outside the scope of our mission and vision. Slide 30. The first is commonality, or the importance of the elements of appearance, of experience, of familiarity that we share as government services. 31, slide 31. The second is value over time. That is how the value of using a design system shouldn't only be at the beginning when you build, but ongoing in how you stay up to date over time. Slide 32. I'd like to start with the idea of value over time and what's perhaps an obvious observation, that the design system should deliver value over the lifetime of a service. Slide 33, that there's value in making it easier to update. Slide 34. There's value in making it easier to get new improvements, new features and bug fixes, better accessibility, components and patterns that are easier to use. Slide 35. And there's value in making it easier to change, to evolve. As we talked about last time, in reducing the cost of change from the perspective of both implementation cost over time and justification cost over time. Slide 36. In general, as we keep making improvements to the design system, it should be easier and easier for teams that use the design system to stay up to date. Slide 37. In fact, we think that this is where the biggest value of the design system lies, after a site is launched instead of before. Slide 38. 8 years in, we now know that this is the beginning and that we're committed to the long term. This project is a long-term process, and USWDS is a long-term solution and partner. We will support long-term solutions and success to be a service that will be here to support teams for the next 8 years, 10 years, 20 years. Slide 40. Well, what will the future look like? What will the future look like in 8 years, 10 years, 20 years? Slide 40. We know that we'll be different from today, and that together we will shape it, because that's what we've done and that's what we'll keep doing. This is why we're working towards solutions like web components, so we can continuously refine and redefine our solutions based on real research with real users, and not just our own research, but the research from across agencies and user journeys, and then scale those improvements across the design system. Over time, we will see the increasing breadth and depth of our common knowledge as an incalculable asset and an ever-improving case for common solutions. Slide 41, a case for common solutions, for common knowledge, for commonality. Slide 42. As you recall, one of our day one principles was design for flexibility, which we described as a sense of familiarity when using government services, while allowing agencies to customize these tools to fit their unique needs. If our services were cars, we'd want folks to be able to get into any of them and know how to drive. An accelerator and a brake pedal where you expect them, a steering wheel within arm's reach, seat belts, windshield wipers, and airbags. Some of these vehicles would be more rugged, some would more fancy. Each would have their audience and their purpose, but each have the same familiar, easy to use fundamentals that mean that anyone could drive any of them. And maybe they'd all share the same kind of distinctive license plate as well. Our process identifies, codifies, scales, and refines these commonalities. Experimentation, creativity, and research move them forward. The process of developing the design language of familiar, easy-to-use government services is an ongoing dynamic that shapes our evolution. Slide 43. So there were some key values that fell outside our mission and vision. We are maturing as a product, a team, and a community, and we felt that the time was right to revisit our mission and vision and to take a fresh look at how we think strategically. So did we take that fresh look, Anne?
Thanks, Dan. We did. Slide 44. Slide 45. I'm here to tell you about our approach, as nonlinear as it may have felt, so that you understand one way to do this. It's not the way. Like we said last time, and just now, we're a team that's maturing along with the rest of you. But it is a way, and it seems to have worked for us. Slide 46. First, we set out some definitions for everyone to work from. Mission and vision are approached with a lot of variability elsewhere, and with a lot of crossover. Out there in the kind of universe of missions and visions, some places differentiate the two in one way or another, and even sometimes I see them kind of swapped in definition. These two words, mission and vision, kind of get fuzzy and overlap if you look at them too closely. So we paired the two and worked on both. At times we prioritized one or the other, but they're so interrelated, we needed to work with them alongside each other. 47. Here are these two words, mission and vision, fuzzy and overlapping. This process felt like this sometimes. Slide 48. But how we define them. Your mission is your purpose, writ large. It should be ambitious but believable, and from the point of view of the people who benefit from it. It reflects in practical terms what we do now, but also what we expect we'll still be doing in 10 to 15 years. It encapsulates and is unique to whatever it's for, in this case, USWDS. A great mission is compelling, clear, unique, and memorable. And it needs to be short. Slide 49, like really short. Like, that's too many words, you'll have to return some kind of short. This slide says, make it short with the make it crossed out and another editing mark indicating the whole sentence should just be short. Slide 50. Your vision, on the other hand, describes broadly what's in the future and how you hope to get there. It's your elevator pitch for the impact you could have, or how you summarize what you do to someone completely unfamiliar. Most are aspirational, but not unrealistic. So for us, what does the design system solve? For who? How does this help? And what's the outcome in our ideal world? These can change every 5 years or so, but should be continuously looking into the future. If you've achieved your vision, you're probably aiming too low. It also explains more than the mission. For us, the mission is the briefest encapsulation of what we do, whereas the vision shows what we want to accomplish broadly. But also, having a mission and vision is great, but how do we put them into action? That's where your pole star comes in, and later your roadmap. But first to pole stars. Slide 51. Pole star. This is what you measure your actions against, your guiding mechanism for decision making. It describes how the team should do the thing, motivating us all and showing how we contribute to the mission and the vision. A poll star can also help you figure out if you're about to prioritize something that doesn't contribute to the core point of the organization. Slide 52. Now to move on to our guiding principles for this work in particular. First, we wanted to eliminate jargon and stick to plain language with a fairly broad definition of both in order to achieve clarity. We want anyone to be able to understand our mission and vision. Poll stars, on the other hand, bring a little more clarity internally than externally, including for those who know and use the system in our case, so can have just a smidge more technicality to them. Slide 53. The often used measure you may have heard before is if a family member might understand. I like to use the measure of would anyone you just met understand? Someone you just met who you don't know the expertise of necessarily, so you need to make it as simple as possible before you hear from them what angle they might be interested in, if they're interested enough to learn more. So simple and clear. Slide 54. Next, does it sound like us? Does it sound like how we usually communicate? Does it support our actual continuous product values and design principles as we practice them? Slide 55. But also, let's be real, like us. We're humans behind the screen. I mean, a great team doing great work, and thank you to the full set of humans that all worked on this. It was really tough work. But still, we're a team composed of people. As I've mentioned previously, ultimately we are count them two, full-time federal staff members plus a core team of contractors. We do have a bit of other kind of federal staff support and then also a terrific community. And thanks for being part of that. But let's be both ambitious and realistic about what we can accomplish together. Slide 56. And does it sound like only us? What is purely the US web design system and no other product or system or program? What can we do that others can't? Slide 57. But also we don't want to get too lofty or we'll use our head in the clouds. Abstract grandiosity does not support clarity. It has to be rooted in what we do day to day and specifically encapsulate what we do now. It's a tough balance. Slide 58. Speaking of time, and to help provide some grounding, I should note the typical cadence of change for these tools. Like your mission changes the least often. It's your purpose. It's why you're here. It's enduring. We can fine tune it rarely, but it shouldn't change often. By frequency of change, that's followed by vision, which you can adjust a little as you learn more or as your landscape changes. After vision, the next thing that might change a little more frequently might be your pole star. How you do what you do to reach your vision, which can change as you find and create kind of new, improved, and more efficient methods and processes. But back to your core, your mission and vision. You can rely on these underlying principles. Your mission especially, which should not change with the direction the wind's blowing. Slide 59. Maybe most importantly at this point, we need to avoid mentioning specific technologies. Not only are they jargon, but they also limit us. What if in 4 years or 8 years, a technology we mentioned is no longer used or available? Slide 60. So this is a list of some exact words or phrases we wanted to avoid for various reasons. Either they're jargon, or they mean different things to different people, or they're a specific technology or approach that would limit our ability to adjust as we needed to. Things like playbook, template, standards, sustainable, code, mobile, continuous improvement, universal design, even design system, and agile. Slide 61. This slide says who, what, how, and why. To start on the process of uncovering and articulating these key concepts, we got the core team together for a workshop. In this workshop, we started with these core questions. Who the US web design system's audience? What are our goals for the system? How can we achieve those goals? Why is it important that we do? That is, what's the design system's impact? Slide 62. Then used those as source material for thinking about our purpose. That is, our mission, and what we want to accomplish. That is our vision, creating 2 fields of variously colored virtual sticky notes, all of them unreadable at this scale. Slide 63. But then we refined to get to fewer, more focused ideas. Slide 64. And refined again to get to even fewer. Slide 65. Sometimes we had to take a step back for a wider view, reaching back into earlier versions to pick up concepts that we thought at the time weren't working. But sometimes those earlier ideas helped us make connections or get to an approach we hadn't considered yet. Slide 66. This process honestly got frustrating. It's showing here even more different sizes and colors of stickies with labels, and also a select few that appear in frames. But since I've done this kind of missioning and visioning a few times before, I could tell everyone that that's incredibly normal. Happens every time in this process. At this point, we could tell we didn't have it yet, but we didn't know what it was quite. Slide 67. So we looked at some other examples while doing essentially a really intense, long session of working through our wording, fine-tuning through to just the right word. Improve or adapt or define or refine. They're different, and words matter. Slide 68. But here, where we concluded, are just 3 colored stickies with labels in navy blue, medium blue, and red. Still unreadable. But this is where we wrapped up. What they actually came out to be, well, that's next. I'll pass it over to Dan.
Thanks, Anne. You know how I love like pulling the lid off the surprise dish. And yes, yeah, I think I used the words dark night of the soul as we passed through one of the more despairing parts of the process. And there were some. You know, we really value talking about this process of our design work, of which writing work is very much part, since we like to show our work, but it isn't always pretty. You know, doing this process can be like watching dreams be born and die. And that dark period between death and rebirth is where you can really question your choices. Also, like talking about process, like E.B. White had this quote talking about humor, like that humor can be dissected as a frog can, but the thing dies in the process, and the innards are discouraging to any but the pure scientific mind. But, you know, luckily we're writing a government mission statement, and hopefully not humor. And hopefully our innards are things that some might find of additional use. So what did we find? Slide 70. Well, first we wanted to step back and just identify ourselves. Like, who are we? Slide 70. We identified words like design and system, resource, reference, library, service, and style guide, among others. But really, there was only one good answer to the question of who we are. Slide 72, our identity, the design system for the federal government. Slide 73, and about like we've been really cautious about using the design system, favoring like a design system when we talked about ourselves, but it did beg the question, like, are there others? Slide 74. Well, of course, there are other design systems. You're probably using one. And there are rules and guidance for various elements of design and usage that span the entire federal government, but we are the only government design system developed for use across the federal government. This was perhaps an instance where our inclination to humility might just make things less clear. So the design system it is. Slide 75. So why do we exist? The eternal question. Slide 76. Well, we identified some action words that express what we do. Words like design, align, shape, connect, maintain, improve, and define. Slide 77. We also identified some descriptive words that express how we want to be. Words like honest, open, clear, curious, humane, straightforward, and fair. Slide 78. And as we went through this process, we felt and we learned like our mission should encompass not just what we do as our team, but what we do together with our community. Slide 79. And what is it we're doing? Bit by bit, improvement by improvement, we're finding and fixing bugs. We're asking questions, we're listening, identifying what works and what can work better, trying new things, failing, trying again, failing better, being intentional, celebrating successes, putting in the work, always moving forward and trying to answer the question, well, how should this be? And in the answers to that question, shaping the future. Slide 80. And that's where we found our mission, shaping the future of government digital services, something we do together over time. It's a very small point, but many mission statements begin with we, and this one does not, intended to point not back at ourselves, but to be inclusive of everyone involved in this process. Slide 81. So as we address the future, what's in that future? Slide 82. We identified some descriptive words that describe our best future. Words like empowered, centered, equitable, trustworthy, familiar, reliable, and better. Slide 83. Thinking about the future, I keep coming back to this Jane Jacobs quote we looked at last week. Development isn't a collection of things, it's a process that yields things. Yields things. It's a warning about seeking solutions that exist outside the culture that supports them, focusing only on the outputs and not a process that sustains them. Slide 84. When we think about our vision of the future, no valuable generative future is sustainable without people and process. No valuable generative future is sustainable without hard work and support. And no valuable generative future is sustainable without new change and creativity. Slide 87. So our vision is a two-part vision, pairing people and outputs. Empowered and supported digital service teams, familiar and easy to use digital services. And finally, what are we doing in support of this mission and vision? Slide 89. We identified some descriptive words that describe our activities. Words like help, develop, research, design, support, maintain, and improve. And we also thought about what we try to help teams do: design, align, explore, maintain, contribute, research, and update. And this resulted in our Polestar. We help government teams align, design, and keep their websites and services up to date. Slide 92. This Polestar begins to more fully capture the breadth of how teams work with the design system, getting started and building alignment, designing, building, and redesigning, and the continuous process of staying up to date and improving over time. Slide 93. So together, this USWDS mission, vision, and Polestar function as a better strategic tool as we evolve as a product and as the expectations teams and the public have for us evolve as well. Our mission, shaping the future of government services, keeps the future always in front of us, focused on a dynamic, collaborative, creative process. Our vision, empowered and supported digital service teams, familiar and easy to use digital services, helps us more fully understand our value and the goals of this process. And our Polestar, we help government teams align, design, and keep their websites and services up to date. Helps us understand how we deliver against valuable and sometimes measurable outcomes. For alignment, these are like, how are we doing for driving adoption, building consensus, improving with evidence and delivering common solutions that teams actually use? For design, how are we doing in improving the design and development speed for projects and teams? How are we delivering? Are we delivering all the components, patterns, and guidance that teams need? And are those tools flexible, modular, and reliable? And for keeping websites and services up to date, are we reducing the time and effort it takes to update and upgrade? Do we see more teams using the most current versions of the design system? Right now, I know it's working because I feel the potential and the terror. I feel the potential in what we're able to do, and I feel the terror in knowing where we still fall short. But this, I think, is good. There's no room to be complacent. Slide 94. And I want to acknowledge that any mission and vision can't include everything. Is it meaningful that accessibility, mobile friendliness, and human-centered design no longer appear in the mission and vision by name? So in every real way, that answer is no. And that's because our USWDS design principles aren't going anywhere and are just as important as they've ever been. And it's worth reiterating that the foundation of what we build comes from starting with real user needs, earning trust, embracing accessibility, promoting continuity, and listening. Those are our shared values that do not change. Slide 95. So what's next? For now, nothing. Take a deep breath. We spent the last month working through this process, and we're going to sit with it for a moment. But we wanted to talk about it and get it out in front of you and just have it sit for a while. But we expect that in about a month, you'll begin to see this on our website and explicitly reflected in what we do and how we talk about it, how we talk about ourselves, how we talk about what's in the future. Slide 96. So finally, I want to say just like thank you to our team for doing this work and getting us here. It has been tough, but healthy to work through this process together. And I can't wait for what's next.